There are tons of videos out there about how to get started as a YouTuber. 10 ways to grow your channel fast. How to make money on YouTube. Influencer tips and tricks. But these videos are so preoccupied with telling you how to become a successful YouTuber that they don't contemplate whether or not you should. The fact is, it's a job. And like any other, it has its benefits and its drawbacks. It's a good fit for some people and not for others. And what I'd like to do with my own take on this subject is give you a realistic picture of what making YouTube videos for a living is actually like. I've been lucky enough to do YouTube as a job for about 6 months now. My channel isn't huge, but it's self-sufficient. I've accomplished a goal that I've been working toward my entire adult life, which is to make an honest living doing something that I love. And I don't have any particular desire to grow my channel even more. I make enough money from it to live on, and for now at least, I'm very happy where I am. If that's the sort of thing that you're after, then please watch on. If you're trying to make millions or become super famous, then I'm the wrong guy to ask. What I'll also be doing, and what might be of more interest to my regular audience, is talking extensively about my process, my approach to my work, and how I ended up making the sorts of videos that I make. There's no one way to make a living on this website, and I can really only speak from my own experience. But I don't want to lean too heavily on myself here, so to that end I asked a handful of other history YouTubers to share their own perspectives.
Hello everybody, I'm Charles. I run the Histocrat channel.
I'm Stefan Milo,
the Cynical Historian.
I run the YouTube channel Canubis.
Jack Rackham. I have no faith.
And without any further ado, during the first fiscal quarter of the year of our Lord 2020, Americans aged 18 to 34 spent an average of 1 hour and 37 minutes watching traditional television every day. By comparison, they spent nearly triple that time on smartphone apps alone. Among Americans aged 35 to 49, viewership of traditional TV dropped by 8.7%. On average, they spent an hour more per day on their phones than in front of a TV screen. Among 50 to 64-year-olds, TV viewing also declined, though by a less staggering 2.4%. The only demographic that traditional TV still has a strong hold over are seniors, aged 65 and up. But even their viewing habits are changing. With a pandemic going on that's extremely dangerous for the elderly, you'd think that their TV watching would skyrocket, but it's actually down slightly from 2019, by 2 minutes a day. It's no secret. People are abandoning television. Movie ticket sales are down too, and not just because of COVID. Streaming services are partly to blame. Social media, even more so. And there's one social media platform that has a near complete monopoly over audio-visual content. You're on it. YouTube's audience is big. I mean really big. And while the business model of the company is based on advertising and selling your personal information, its purpose has gone unchanged since its inception. Broadcast yourself. You make your little video, you upload it to the site, and potentially reach an audience of millions. You don't have to pay your dues to become a YouTuber. You don't have to kiss the right rings or climb the right ladders. You can work from home. You can be your own boss. You don't have to move to New York or LA. It's an incredibly appealing career prospect. It's a lot like the Wild West of entertainment in that way. There's gold in them hills. High risk, high reward. You can strike it rich. You just gotta get lucky and put in the work. I languished in obscurity for 2 years before my channel took off. And like a lot of other YouTubers, my first videos were wildly different from the ones that I do now.
I started out back in about 2011, 2012, very much going for the very lowest common denominator, like video game, let's play style video stuff. And that just sank without a trace.
I had actually tried to start a hookah channel a year prior. That went nowhere.
My first YouTube channel is still up because I've forgotten the password, and I don't have access to that email address anymore. And I was going to be sort of a bold and bankrupt kind of character, if you know that guy. I was living in Serbia at the time, and I was going to explore the Balkans. And I made 2 videos, and then I moved back to England. So it didn't take off.
I actually started like well over 10 years ago as just a kid playing with Playmobil figures, and later with like Playmobil stop motions. My channel was completely different.
I actually started more from like the entertainment angle. My first sort of attempt at YouTube was in sketch comedy a long time ago.
I started with movie reviews, which was something I'd wanted to get into ever since 2009, when I saw a YouTube video that changed my life.
Star Wars The Phantom Menace was the most disappointing thing since my son. I mean, how much more could you possibly fuck up the entire backstory to Star Wars?
Red Letter Media was nothing less than a total revelation to me. Here were trailblazers, people doing something completely unique and original. At the time, the Plinkett reviews were about the only YouTube videos that didn't completely suck, and actually showcased some real technical skill. After the heyday of Plinkett, RLM started half in the bag in their other series, which I found even more impressive.
That's my used colostomy bag.
They were pushing the limitations of YouTube as a medium. They showed that YouTube could be a place for high-quality, theatrical entertainment made by actual filmmakers, not just low-effort vloggers and commentators. So in June of 2018, very much inspired by Red Letter Media, I started reviewing movies on YouTube. Most of those videos are still up, and I'm proud of many of them. It was a good creative outlet, and at that point, it's all it needed to be. I have a background in film, but by the late 20-teens, my career path had swerved bizarrely into historical interpretation. At the time I started making videos, I was working as a tour guide in downtown New Orleans, having come off of a similar job at the Gettysburg Battlefield. And the thing about being a tour guide, especially here in New Orleans, as opposed to academia or even museum work, is that the education must also be entertainment. It's not a lecture, it's street theater, and you're working mostly for tips, so you literally cannot afford to bore your audience. After a few years of touring, I had a large repertoire of stories from New Orleans history just rattling around in my head. Stories that I'd constantly refined based on audience feedback. So I was constantly adding or subtracting from them. I was cutting jokes that didn't land and extending ones that did. And in the fall of 2018, I had the idea to film my stories and upload them to the internet. Surprisingly, no other New Orleans tour guide had thought to do that, probably because they're all a bunch of lazy drunks. The videos were very simple, just me talking to the camera. I thought they were pretty good and shared them around shamelessly, but very few people watched them. About a month later, I tried my hand at more involved documentary-style things with my first couple King Philip's War videos, shot on location in Massachusetts with battle maps, animations, and artwork. Unsurprisingly, this higher-effort stuff received more attention and positive feedback. A couple bigger YouTubers saw it and shared it, so my subscriber count doubled, went up from like 300 to 600 overnight, which was a huge deal and extremely encouraging. So I continued to plod along, doing movie reviews, New Orleans history, and some Civil War stuff. I had a vague goal of one day turning YouTube into a part-time job, but at the time it seemed like a far-off pipe dream. Then, in I think May of 2019, I made a video about the Confederate monuments of New Orleans with this oversized poster board comically denoting degrees of racism. The nice black ladies at Office Max were very suspicious of me when I got that printed. The video received some pushback, shall we say, from a lot of South will rise again types, which was funny in some ways, but pretty unpleasant in others. I mean, you get used to this sort of thing after a while, but the first time that a bunch of strangers send you a large volume of hate mail, it can come as a bit of a shock. Now, it wasn't terribly surprising. I mean, I knew that people had believed this kind of stuff. I mean, I myself had believed a lot of it back in the day. And they were using the same arguments that I used to use against pussy liberals, except now I was the pussy liberal. It was surreal, man. But I also kind of figured, okay, this might be a teachable moment. At the time, I was watching a lot of ContraPoints, who's this lady who does like politics and social justice stuff. I was, and still am, completely taken with her filmmaking style. Like Red Letter Media, she's a trailblazer, doing things that nobody else does. A lot of the things she talks about, I have absolutely no interest in, but I couldn't stop watching. Her videos were just so clever and creative, especially when she would break issues down in a mock debate between characters that she all played. So,
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Checkmate Lincolnites!
I made my first comments response video, which people seemed to like. At that time, I was up to about 1,000 subscribers, and this whole YouTube thing seemed to be a little bit more achievable to me. So I made a fairly drastic decision that I don't recommend you emulate. I quit my day job. Actually, my girlfriend and I both did. We just wanted to get out of the service industry, pretty much. She wanted to get a job with benefits and everything, and my plan was to go back into film, probably as an editor, and do YouTube on the side. We did some traveling that summer, including a 200-mile section of the Appalachian Trail, or Appalachian Trail if you're a middling Yankee. I like to brainstorm when I'm hiking, and I mean, I've been known to write an entire short film in my head on a day's hike, and then, type it out on my phone furiously when I get to camp that night. So I was walking along somewhere in Tennessee when I had a realization. I'd always been attracted to trailblazers, so why wasn't I being one? Why was I emulating other styles instead of making the sorts of videos that only I can make? Clearly, my strength was as a filmmaker. I have a good eye for visuals. I know where to put the camera. I know how to light a scene. I'm a pretty good writer and an okay actor. So with a little bit of investment of time and money, there was no reason that I couldn't be making videos with a production value and a quality that would blow bigger channels out of the water. I went home and got to work. The videos got more ambitious and laborious, but whatever, I had time. I was unemployed. I threw a bunch of shit against the wall and just saw what stuck. Some of the videos worked really well, others less so. But for the most part, I was happy with how they were turning out, and that's what really matters, right? Well, yes and no. You can't eat good feelings, and I was burning through my savings at a rate of knots. I had a pretty good number of patrons for such a small channel, but my business was very firmly in the red. My subscriber count was rising, but glacially. I was seriously considering going back to work at the tour company. After COVID hit, that option pretty much disappeared, the work dried up, and YouTube was my only lifeline. It had to pay off, and soon. Then in April of 2020, the cynical historian featured a clip from Checkmate Lincolnites in one of his videos about the Lost Cause myth. That video did extremely well, which drove a lot of people to my channel and drove up engagement. And that meant that my videos were recommended to more people, and on and on and on and on and on it goes. Atun-Shei films exploded overnight. It had taken me 2 years to crawl to 5,000 subscribers. Now I was getting 1,000 or 2,000 subscribers every single day. Within a week, I was making enough money on Patreon to pay my rent. 2 months later, I was out of the blue and into the black. So I made it. The dream job, the shiny plastic thing, all of it. So now I can just relax, right?
I would like to ask you guys about what exactly this gig entails, like the technical aspects. Is it a lot of work, or do we just laugh all the way to the bank with all of our YouTube riches?
In educational YouTube?
Well, first off, I think probably the biggest misconception that people have about YouTubers and doing YouTube work, don't assume it's an easy job. Like, it's a dream job, but it's not an easy job.
I'll work 10, 12-hour days, etc. Don't take a day off until it's done sort of attitude, which is not particularly healthy, but that's inevitably what seems to happen.
I mean, it's a lot of work. If I worked 40 to 45 hours at a bank, which is my old job, I don't work any less doing a YouTube channel. The difference is I'm my own boss. I'm doing it from home. And that's great. You know, my daughter's downstairs, and at any time I want, I can go and play with her for a bit when I take a break, or, you know, it's the middle of the afternoon. I could drink a beer if I want. Who knows if I'm wearing trousers?
Like, I do this not because it's, not because it's like, little work for a lot of pay. It's very much the opposite in a lot of ways, but like, it's what I want to be doing.
There is a pressure to being self-employed. And that when, I was working at the bank, it didn't matter how good or bad I was. It wouldn't even matter if we got robbed. I'd still be paid at the end of the month. Making a living off your own hard work or creativity in some self-employed way, there is always that pressure to make enough to pay the bills at the end of the month. That's not unique to YouTube, but it is a part of the YouTube, especially when our fates are determined by the whims of the algorithm.
You will be constantly being bit at your heels by comments and bit at by the algorithm and demonetization and that. So like, the adversity comes from every direction possible. So it's also not something that you just want to go in willy-nilly.
I love this job, but I have never worked harder in my life. It's non-stop. I rarely take any time off, and when I do, I'm usually thinking about the video that I'm going to make next. Thankfully, I have pretty healthy relationships with the people around me, but if I didn't, and if I was a little bit more introverted, I think that this job would probably consume me in an extremely unhealthy way, like a hard-drinking detective whose dead wife's murder remains unsolved. Like, for example, I made the sponsor ad recently where I hired 3 actors and shot them in front of a big green screen with these elaborate Roman costumes, and I went to Michael's and I got a bunch of stuff to build these model buildings of Imperial Rome, and then I set them on fire. Don't skip it. It's pretty good. Rome, 64 years after the birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. The tyrannical Emperor Nero has set fire to his capital city to make room for his own grand palace. As the eternal city burns, Nero entertains his courtiers with a performance.
Silence, ye spheres, be still, rolling stars, open vaulted skies above me.
Divine Caesar.
Ah, Seneca, my favorite philosopher. What do you think of my latest work of art? It's beautiful, is it not?
Yes, your pulchritude. The song was absolutely transcendent.
Not the song, the fire.
Ah, yes, it is splendid. In fact, great Caesar, the fire is the reason I came to speak with you. Other than, of course, to bask in your awesome presence. I was wondering if maybe you had considered that burning down the city may arguably not be a work of some great artistic genius, but instead maybe something more, well, not insane, but unadvised.
And this is your opinion, is it?
Mine? Oh, no, certainly not mine. But some may say...
Who says it? I want their names.
Your Magnificence. A true Stoic doesn't care what other people think. The thoughts and actions of others are outside of your control, so don't dwell on them. Instead, focus on what you can control.
I am Caesar! I control the world! I want their names. Before the week is out, I will have them fighting rabid wild animals in...
Divinity! You are the brightest philosophy student I have ever known. But even the best among us occasionally need to be reminded of the Stoic virtues of courage, wisdom, temperance, and justice. Could I humbly suggest you sit down with the writings of Zeno, or perhaps Cleanthes? Contemplating their work could only enhance your great genius.
I don't have the time to read a whole book. I've got so much time to devote to my art.
Then why not sign up for Blinkist and gain access to the content of thousands of nonfiction books condensed into concise summaries that take only 10 to 15 minutes of reading or listening time. Blinkist recently added a few books by Stoic philosopher Ryan Holiday. Lives of the Stoics chronicles the history of the greatest Stoic thinkers of the ancient, now world, and the Daily Stoic offers suggestions and exercises for how you can use Stoic principles to improve your own life. Let's say you're trying to get into philosophy and you don't know how to start. Instead of buying a book sight unseen, you can save time and money by going through a few blinks. Then, if you like what you see, you can click on the link and buy the whole book online.
Well, it does sound very convenient for an intellectual such as myself.
It is! And the first 100 people to go to www.blinkist.com/Atun-Shei films will get a 7-day free trial in addition to 25% off a premium membership. Be sure to check out their brand new shortcasts, abridged versions of your favorite podcasts like Revisionist History, Simplify, The Doctor's Kitchen, and
Excellent work, Seneca. You have pleased me greatly.
Happy to be of service, your imperiousness.
Oh, Seneca,
Yes, great Caesar?
kill yourself.
They say that great artists steal, and to some extent that's true, but I think the key to any worthy creative endeavor is finding your own unique voice. That may sound like artsy-fartsy claptrap, but it's true. And for me, at least, the process is ongoing, and the way that I try to discover it is through trial and error. I've come a long way in this medium, but I don't think I've quite found my voice yet. It's possible that I never will. Personally, I think the Witchfinder General is the best stuff on this channel because it's the most original, the most unique to me. Nobody else is doing anything quite like it. Those videos are not particularly popular, and partly because they're so incredibly niche, but also because I think people tend to gravitate toward the familiar and the accessible. A Puritan man shouting in a period-correct early modern English accent is neither of those things. Don't mix up popularity with quality. If your audience is clamoring for you to do idea A, but you're really passionate about idea B, choose B. For example, there are a large chunk of my viewership who would like it nothing more than if I was Checkmate Lincolnites, the YouTube channel. I get asked regularly why I don't do one every week. And no, it's not because of the facial hair. It's because, well, I mean, apart from the fact those videos are a huge pain in the ass to make, it's because the format of the series is extremely limited. The purpose of that series is to discuss and debunk erroneous historical myths about the Civil War, and there just aren't that many worth discussing in detail. If I did it every week, I would quickly run out of things to talk about and the show would lose all value. You're getting 10 episodes, total. I want Checkmate Lincolnites to be something we can look back on fondly. I want it to end strong, like Breaking Bad, and not die a slow death like Friends. But don't be too sad. I can say without exaggeration that if my current plans work out, the series finale will be the most epic YouTube video you've ever seen. Anyway, finding your voice is only part of the struggle. You also need to discover a mission statement for your channel. What do I mean by that? So you need to have a clear idea in your mind about what your channel's trying to accomplish, what your channel's principles are. If you're watching this video, then chances are pretty good that you like to watch educational videos on YouTube. And if you're gonna presume to educate people, you better be pretty damn responsible about it. There is a ton of misinformation on the internet, and if you're gonna start, let's say, a history channel, then giving people good information needs to be your top priority.
A big part of the way that I think about my videos is that honestly I'm like a middleman, you know. As a popular historian, I'm basically going through academic history so you don't have to, you know, and then sort of packaging it in this sort of chocolate covered way. So, you know, obviously research I think is incredibly fun, and I love analytical stuff, but I sort of very rarely sort of offer up my own opinions. I'm just sort of repackaging stuff that people who know much more about a topic than me have said.
I feel exactly the same way as you, because my big thing, like you, I'm not an academic. I mean, I have an archaeology degree for what it's worth, which is very little. Because, you know, in a bachelor's degree, you're just really covering the basics. I'm not an expert in anything by any means. And my big thing is always showing my citations, putting my sources in the description, making them accessible.
History isn't just a genre, it's a methodology, right? Mm-hmm. It's a way of thinking. And that's kind of the idea that I want to kind of get to the audience. Is like, this is a way of thinking that, you know, don't stop with my video, go to the next source, you know, look at my things in the description. There's always links and stuff like that. And, you know, like to get people to start thinking further than just like the history is just the facts in a certain sequence, you know, like there's more to it than that.
The last thing I want to do is say something inaccurate. Anyone can criticize my presentation style or an animation. I couldn't care less. But if someone says I've inaccurately reported something, that would keep me up at night. I'd have to get rid of the video if I really felt it was wrong. So it's all about the sources for me, sources.
Yeah, totally. And sort of, you know, and when you do make a mistake, I mean, I've made a few, you know, thankfully it's like the mistakes that I have made factually in my videos are like pretty minor and not sort of like integral to the argument of the video. Yeah. So, you know, sort of like little pinned comment, correction, you know, hey guys, I fucked up, I got this wrong, apologies, you know. But yeah, that's important, you know, is that if I mean, if it is like a major problem, and then yeah, it's sort of that would warrant, you know, in my opinion, sort of taking a video down. But yeah, it's just important to like fess up because everybody makes mistakes, you know. I mean, you know, I mean,
You've only made a few. I make like a mistake every single video.
well,
Yeah.
you've been doing this a lot longer than I am, and also you're the real deal, Cypher. You know, you're.
Well, yeah, you could cite yourself. You could put
Yeah, exactly. You
who
can
said
you
this? I
literally
did.
do
I'm a
cite yourself.
historian.
I have actually done that.
Whatever your mission statement is, I encourage you to live by this mantra. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Now, I will say, YouTube's business model makes this very hard. YouTube's goal, whenever you log on, is to keep your eyes affixed upon it for as long as possible. That's it. That's all it's trying to do. And unfortunately, the best way to keep people's attention is not by educating them, it's by outraging them. Controversial or mean-spirited videos get more engagement, by which I mean people watch for longer, they're more likely to leave likes or dislikes or make comments. And the more engagement a video gets, the more the algorithm pushes it. YouTube likes it when you get into an argument in the comment section. YouTube likes it when you type out a multi-paragraph comment about how the Civil War was all about state rights. But here's the real question. Do you like getting into arguments in the comment section? Do you like typing out multi-paragraph essays about how the Civil War was actually about states' rights? Of course you don't. And don't give me that shit about how much you love trolling and, oh, I just love triggering people. No, you don't. You're a sad, pathetic, lonely little boy who craves social interaction. You may think you love trolling, but unless you have a personality disorder, you know on some level that that's a lie. People get sucked into social media, man, and it destroys their souls. And there's nothing that you or I can do to change that. But what we can do is meet them where they are, subvert the algorithm from within, harness its powers, and use them for good rather than evil.
We are eyeball merchants in a way. We make our living on a social media platform, right? So that sort of necessitates a certain relationship with clickbait and with the sort of things like, what is your relationship with clickbait? Do you embrace it? Do you wholeheartedly reject it? Do you flirt with it?
I will just say real quick that like in terms of how YouTubers make their money and all that, I think eyeball merchant is probably the best way to describe the whole thing.
Yeah.
We're going to run on Twitter, change our bio right away.
Eyeball
merchant.
Eyeball merchant.
I kind of have a distinction in my mind between good clickbait and bad clickbait, where bad clickbait's just trying to trick someone into watching something that's either not relevant or, you know, it's just view farming. Whereas good clickbait, to my mind, is here is something which is engaging, simple, and direct about the topic the video is about, and then you deliver on the message of the thumbnail.
I feel like I've only made one clickbait video in a way. Like I knew that was going to be clickbait, and that was my last one, Rome's Furthest Outpost.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a
Scotland.
Resounding success. I hate to say it, but it was my like number one video.
The biggest advice I would have as far as, you know, anyone wanting to start a YouTube channel that also kind of touches on my relationship to clickbait is, as much as you can, try to know the title of the video as you're planning it, because that is like, you know, if you know from the start that you're going to have a really great title that's going to like get everyone to watch, like, you know, regardless of how much effort you put into the video after that, that's going to be like the most important thing, more than your effort for the rest of the video half the time.
That's literally the last thing I do. I'm exactly the opposite on that. I know what I want to talk about. I know like what I would call it in like an academic setting, but then I make up the title like as I'm uploading.
Oh, yeah, I make the thumbnail literally as the video is uploading. So
I do that with a thumbnail, absolutely.
My girlfriend always gives me shit about that. She's always just like, she's like, what are you gonna call this one? I'm like, I don't know, the Vinland Saga. Leif Erikson's brother goes to America. I don't know. and she's like, how about top 10 voyages? And I'm like, well, the video is already made, you know.
One thing I never quite appreciated before my channel blew up was how intertwined this job would be with internet culture. And I watched a lot of YouTube before I started making videos, but I guess I always saw it as more of a streaming service than a social media platform. You know that little jolt of dopamine that you get whenever you log on to like Facebook or whatever and you see that there's a notification and you think like, oh my goodness, someone's paying attention to me. I better click and see what they said. Well, imagine that, but hundreds of times a day, and you'll have some idea of what we YouTubers have to deal with whenever we log on to this site. I'm famous in like the smallest possible, teensiest, tiniest possible way, but I still receive an enormous amount of attention online. Overall, that's a good thing. It means that people like my work, and as distasteful as it is, attracting attention is what puts food on the table in my house. But there's a dark side to it as well. For about a week after my channel took off, I was glued to my phone, like all day, every day. Thousands of people were commenting on my videos, sending me emails, tweeting at me, whatever. And, there were shitty comments too, but that's to be expected. I mean, most of them were really positive, and the whole thing was just really cool. Until it wasn't. It surprised me how quickly my tiny little infinitesimal measure of fame had become unwelcome and overwhelming. Again, most of the comments were extremely flattering, but the others, ranging from kinda shitty to downright certifiable, kinda made me lose faith in the human race. I'm only half joking. I mean, everybody knows that YouTube comment sections are hives of scum and villainy. If 4chan is the asshole of the internet and YouTube is the grundle. Cleaner, but not by much. So after that first week of dopamine abuse, and directly because of both the negative and the positive comments, I made a rule for myself, which was to only read comments on new videos for about a day or two. And after that, I wouldn't read any of them. Reading comments on new videos is important to me because that's what I'm hearing from my regular audience, from my biggest fans, the people that I'm actually making videos for. And though I don't really incorporate audience suggestions into my videos all that much, I still like to hear what they have to say, and their criticism is always the most constructive. But the primary reason for this rule was so that I could keep on living in the real world. I get so many comments that I could spend all day doing literally nothing but reading them. And sometimes that's tempting. You open up the YouTube app and you're just a click away from sticking yourself with an IV of pure uncut dopamine. I also do it because I really have no desire to read the negative comments. Yeah, some are funny, but most of the time they're just depressing. I mean, it's sobering to think how many ignorant and bigoted people are out there. How many people are just going through life with this frothing hatred and rage that they're just carrying around with them. There's nothing quite like even a small amount of fame to really show you how fucked up and stupid people are. And if you get too deep down that rabbit hole, then you start to look at people differently. And that way madness lies. You can't judge people based on their worst moments or their dumbest beliefs. And that can be all too easy when all you're seeing of this person is their one shitty comment. I mean, we're all just horny apes with keyboards. We have to remember that. And I mean, we're all problematic. We're all hypocritical. We're all imperfect in some way. The best way to go about it is, it's a tried and true method, right? Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Someone very wise said that. I think it was Dumbledore or something. And at the end of the day, just keep in mind, YouTube comments are not a good representation of who a person actually is. They're a manifestation of the id, people's innermost private thoughts, which for some reason they feel like sharing from easily traceable IP addresses on a public website owned by a corporation well known for the mass collection of users' personal data.
I don't read the comments on my videos.
Ever?
Like you, I read them for a day or two, and then I stop reading them. And I just have to do that to psychologically function.
Oh, yeah.
I found over the years my attitude towards the comment section has changed. So when I started out, obviously I was very much delighted by any comment whatsoever, just because someone's watching the stuff I put out. And then over time, it started to be as you say, became more of a masochistic exercise, and I stopped reading stuff.
For a long time, I was, didn't have hardly any following or anything until I made a video called 10 Common Slavery Myths, and that blew up. And was, oh boy.
Yeah, it's a good video, but yeah, it's a sad story behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I literally carried around a gun in my waist for 2 weeks because I was getting so many death threats.
This sort of stuff that I see on my channel, maybe we shouldn't kill people by the thousands because they're different than us, and maybe holding someone for life to labor for you against their will is a bad thing. You might think that that's self-evident, but not on the internet.
Yeah,
I
surprising
find it
what arguments we're
amazing.
still having.
Not just that stuff, but I'll find like there's the really obvious stuff that really shouldn't be controversial, and then there's also like the really obscure stuff that you would never expect to be controversial. There'll be some religious movement from over 1,000 years ago that died out thousands of years ago, and people will still be arguing about it.
I try to be a source of public history, and the only way you can do that is to have a moderated comment section. If you allow people to just spout off bigotry and lie all over the place, then you can't have a productive conversation. And I'm actually reading it to get something out of those comments. A lot of the time I will have people just like, I'll get some historian about something that I talked about, like, okay, well, you did good-ish. Here's some criticism. And it's just like, blah, and like sources and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, sweet. Like that's what I want, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that is the good shit. Yeah. I mean, I ban people over just like the most petty shit now.
Yeah.
Like I used to be very, I was just like, when I started, I was just like, all free speech is welcome. It's like, what is it? It's not up to me to censor, people. And then, after a while, once the sort of certain videos, particularly Civil War videos, got watched a lot, and then it was just like, oh, there are literal white supremacists here. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to ban them. And then sort of it was like, okay, racists, bigots, as you said, Cypher, sexists. And then recently it's just been like somebody will just sort of, just say something like kind of shitty or like passive aggressive, like fuck you, ban.
I mean, I actually got told off by a comment the other day for breaking the fourth wall because this guy was criticizing me and they were arguing.
On a YouTube video? How dare you?
I know, yeah. And then I hopped in the comment at the bottom of the comment. I was like, hey, fuck you.
Most of the hate that I get on this website comes from people who watch a few of my videos, form a perception of my political opinion, and decide to let me know what they think about it. Namely, the sort of stuff that I've said about the Confederacy, as well as my moral stance against bigotry of any kind, has led my critics to build me up as kind of this left-wing boogeyman. This cuts both ways, of course, and I've also been claimed by people who think that I share their political opinions. Oftentimes these people aren't terribly reputable either. I've been claimed by everybody from anarcho-communists to American nationalists. Nobody's gotten it right. It's almost as if most people who don't spend all day browsing the political compass memes subreddit have complicated beliefs that don't easily fit on an arbitrary left-right spectrum. Now this is all very interesting because I've only made 2 videos about a modern-day political issue, but I have made several videos that are politically charged. They shouldn't be, but that's the world we live in. A lot of people consume political media that does nothing but confirm their pre-existing biases. So if you tell some of these people something as self-evident as Jim Crow was unjust, they hear, I'm a pinko and I love Stalin. So if you want to do YouTube for a living, just keep in mind that you will be constantly misrepresented. If it's not your political views, then it'll be something else. But the good news is that you are under no obligation to justify a goddamn thing to anybody.
What sort of, what fringe group have you guys pissed off?
The answer is yes.
Yeah. My favorite one is when I got a whole bunch of neo-druids sending me emails being like, yeah, your video was good, but like you used the wrong source. You should have looked at the Irish mythological tales. And I'm like, yeah, I've read them. I'm going to do a follow-up on them. You won't like me anymore for me having done so.
It's the funniest thing that I still get hate from, and it's just like such a minor mistake. I said the wrong model of plane.
God,
that's amazing.
I said B-17 instead of B-25. I was 2 digits off. But
you get all the
that's a whole genre
historian.
of comments, isn't it? Like the pedant.
You get all
the criticism, the positive comments, and then there's the pedant.
No, you get all the military history enthusiasts involved in
and they don't care about like the deeper arguments I'm making.
No.
They just care that I got the model number wrong.
It's the buttons on the uniform. It's like,
how
dare you wear those shoulder boards? The Iron Cross needs to be on the left breast, or whatever.
But it actually goes further. Like, so my dad's a historian, and I swear within an hour of me releasing that video, I got an email from him being like, those are B-25s, son. Like he didn't even have a phone that can text at this point. Like
He sent you a telegram like it's a B-25.
Like even my dad's doing it, but like it wasn't like he was being hateful. But I've gotten a lot of hate for that for some reason. Like that's the silliest one I can think of.
I made a video on what is the oldest country in the world. And
yeah,
you'll have Romanians, Turks after you. You'll have Indians, Iranians.
Everyone in Iceland is like spitting their fish
no,
out of their mouth.
What the hell did it just say?
So far, it might seem like I'm trying to scare you off from YouTube, and to be honest, I kind of am. It requires an enormous amount of time and energy that won't pay off for years, if it ever does. But the fact is, if YouTube does pay off for you, then it can be a really great thing, and it can open all sorts of doors for you. I make good money. I don't make riches by any means, but it's slightly more on average than I made when I was a New Orleans tour guide. And even a little bit more income makes a big difference. I don't have to calculate costs in my head when I'm making groceries anymore. I can get the fancy thin bread frozen pizza instead of the store brand stuff. I can get the top shelf dog food because you know what? My little guy is worth it. Being famous in the smallest possible way has some downsides, of course, but it has some upsides too. I mean, getting recognized in public is a trip. It's happened to me 4 times, and 3 of them were before my channel actually blew up, which is kind of interesting, but shouldn't be that surprising since at that time I was doing a lot of local history stuff. I'm sure it would probably happen more if I actually went out, which during the age of COVID I really don't do. The first time was at a movie theater at a 40th anniversary screening of The Life of Brian. This guy came up to me and said he liked my videos, and I was so awkward. I couldn't look him in the eye. I mean, it was very flattering, but I didn't know how to handle it. The next 2 times were at Mardi Gras parades, and I was so drunk that I probably made a fool of myself. The last time was actually pretty recently. I was getting some pickup shots for my Dracula video outside of a cemetery at around midnight one night. And I wasn't doing anything illegal, but you know, I had a bunch of camera equipment outside of a cemetery in the dead of night, so you know, still pretty weird. And I'm getting a shot of a tomb, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a cop car, and I'm like, okay, all right, well, it seems to be going by. I'm not doing anything wrong, so you know, should be okay. And then I see him turn on his lights and turn around and start to pull up next to me, and I think, oh God, all right, here we go. And he rolls down his window, and I'm just like, hey, how's it going, officer? And he says, hey, come here, come here. Oh God. And he goes, hey, you're that guy from YouTube. Yeah, you make those Civil War videos. Yeah, really interesting perspective. Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah. He was a cool guy. We talked for like 10 minutes.
I still feel like funny telling people I'm a YouTuber and I make videos.
Yeah.
And that a lot of people, because you kind of get famous in your own niche, you know, no one that isn't really into archaeology gives a crap about who I am, and even, you know, the majority of the people in the world who are into archaeology don't know who I am. But I did get spotted at my job when I was working at that bank, and I was fixing a printer behind the teller row where all the tellers are. And this woman shouted over, she's like, hey, I'm a fan of yours. And I was like, didn't even make the connection because it had never happened to me before. And I was like, yeah, everyone loves the IT department. And she was like, no, I'm a fan of yours. And I was like, okay, thank you. Yeah, it's this printer, I'm gonna get it working.
Honestly, thank goodness it takes a while, because like imagine if the very first thing you uploaded suddenly got hundreds of thousands of people watching it and tons of angry comments.
God.
Yeah, I mean, I often think like even the, you know, just like being, you know, somewhat successful and like a little bit renowned. And I'm like pushing 30 right now. If that had happened when I was 21, it would have been a fucking disaster. Like I would have said deeply problematic things every single day.
Yeah.
I would have, I would be immediately canceled. I would like fucking, you know, I would do all the drugs. And
I know, yeah. I was just in my second video would be like, look how many drugs YouTube bought me.
So whether you are interested in starting a YouTube channel yourself, or whether you just wanted to hear me and the guys talk about the job, I hope you got something out of this video. I know I've been complaining a fair amount, but there was purpose to that. I wanted to give you a realistic idea of what some of the negatives are to this job. Again, it's a job like any other. But if there is one takeaway that I want you to have from this video, it's that I am immensely privileged to be able to do this. And I know how lucky I am. And I have a lot of people to thank, a lot of people who helped me along the way, but I owe it to you, most of all, the people who watch this channel. All right, video's over. You can fuck off now.